All right, looks like there's a few of you in here. We'll stand by just a moment, let you guys trickle in. So I've got a couple people here helping me read comments, but we're going to talk through what happened and what Dan forgot. I'm going to tell you the story. This is an amazing story that I never would have understood. But since you're here and you're trapped, I'll go ahead and play the banjo for you.
For homeowners who like being ready. That's why we have safety tips for things.
That's a chip life.
Let me see if I can find the feed on here.
I thought you had no ads.
No, that's not on me.
You got ads on this stream now.
All right.
Can you tilt that so you can see the banjo instead of like the ceiling? I mean, it might be too late to do that, but just a thought.
It won't tilt anymore down.
Welcome. I got people reading the comments. If you got something to say, whatever you say in there, these guys are going to read it to me. So you guys check that out and see what.
Turn your volume down.
Check that out and see what. Check that out and see what.
There's your volume bar.
There we go. All right, so yes, it's been a crazy week here, and I don't know, normally when I pull the banjo out, people go away, but in this particular case, you probably want to hear what I got to say, so there's nothing really you can do about it. We are starting a band, Grateful Dead.
Oh God, that's bad.
I just thought of that while we were doing that other video. Things have been kind of disorganized and scattered here because of all this stuff. So I'm very thankful to be home and where I can stay mostly laying flat with my left leg elevated. My only damage was my left leg, and it was broken severely below the kneecap. So I'm going to go through the crash and tell you what happened here. Huge big learning curve off of this that I think we can all learn something off of this. I know I did. I'll never fly the same way again, and this is huge. This is absolutely huge. What Dan forgot, I actually knew it. I've experienced this before. I just forgot. It just never entered my mind. I got sucker punched on this one, and it never entered my mind. So I'm gonna take a break and listen to the comments here because I can't read them from on the screen here. Anything I need to know about?
No, I was just wishing you good.
Saying good one, looking good.
I appreciate that. Lots of well wishers and things like that. We'll drag our feet here and let a few more people come in to the live here. And it is quite a story. So we'll take requests. What song can I play on the banjo for you? Well, he spoke right to my restless soul. Still running hungry and beyond control. For all that's named is a time and place that you won't know till it comes to fade. And you plant your feet when the spring is tender, or when the summer beats down, you spray for the rain. You hope for the harvest, you hope for the winter, and then you plant your fields again. It's actually a lot better with a band. If I had a voice, I'm low on energy and low on everything. I got so much drugs in me right now that it's very difficult. But anyway, thanks for jumping in here. We'll keep this short. I got a cheat sheet here, a list of things I'm going to tell you about here. The story here is an amazing story, and I'm going to jump right into that. First of all, the purpose of the Lockheed flight. You know, Glenn and I have been friends for a long time. I typed in the DC-3. His family and mine do a lot of things together. We travel together. We fly a lot together. Glenn is a special individual. You talk about a knucklehead. Glenn Hancock is a knucklehead, and he and I are fairly gruff on each other, but his background is mostly in computer software, business, and things like that. He is a very fine, accomplished multi-engine pilot. He's owned a lot of airplanes. He really does a really nice job with that Lockheed, and I've flown a lot with him in the Lockheed. The problem was that the Lockheed had been sitting idle for an extended period of time. It did not have a brake overhaul. So all you people out there screaming about a brake overhaul, there was no brake overhaul. It had a right main landing gear strut that was not holding. What's inside of a strut, an oleo strut? Well, there's nitrogen and 5606. What keeps the two separate and keeps it from leaking? Well, it's a whole series of chevron seals. And in order to do that, you got to pull the gear out. So he and I had been out there and talked about it, looked at it. It's the exact same system that goes on the DC-3. I've changed them on the DC-3, but I was kind of unfamiliar with doing one on a Lockheed, but it looked really similar. So once we got a line on getting where these chevrons are come from, he did all of that. And I was kind of keeping my eye on going out there and helping with the chevron replacement. But as it turns out, the day that he had lined up to do that, I was out of town, so they went ahead and did it. But in order to replace those chevrons, remember this is the main landing gear oleo strut. That's the shock absorber. That's the big thing with the chrome that goes up and down. You see them on the airliners. That's what absorbs the weight when you land. That's the oleo strut. That's all he was doing. In order to get to it, they definitely had to take the brake system loose and take the brake line loose to get all that done. And they did. When it got all done, we had coordinated. We were definitely going to fly. I wanted to fly with Glenn. I'm not acting as a multi-engine instructor. I'm not acting as a PIC. He doesn't need me. He's fully checked out and legal to fly his own airplane. As a friend, I said, I want to go with you. Let's make sure and do all this stuff. And especially in light of the recent Lockheed crash in California, I told Glenn, you know, those guys, they got in a hurry. They taxied out. They never retracted their flaps. They missed it on their before takeoff checklist, and they made an attempt to take off. I got to get this off of my knee here. They made an attempt to take off with the flaps down, and it won't do it. The airplane simply will not do it. It'll roll down the runway and leap into the air. It'll claw its way northbound with all that power. It'll actually fly at about 55 knots in that condition. It'll fly long before it's ready to, and you don't have enough forward stick. You can't push hard enough, and you can't trim fast enough to overcome it. Once you get into that, and once you reach 55 and the mains come up off the ground, you're off to the races. Will it climb? Full flaps? Yes, it'll climb. That airplane in Chino made it to like 200 feet before it fully stalled and rolled left and impacted and burned. So that's all that happened. I'm always concerned with Glenn, just like I'm concerned with everybody. Everybody. I see all these accidents. Slow down. Use the checklist. Make sure you're good. Glenn was getting ready to take the Lockheed out on a trip. I said, well, let's do a post-maintenance flight. Let's just enjoy a nice flight together. We'll look the airplane over. We'll go fly. Let's look at your checklist. Let's make sure everything's good. So that was the whole purpose of it. No big deal at all. It happened to work out for that evening. Kind of got coordinated at the last minute, and I went out there. I pre-flighted the airplane. I looked at it. It was full of gas. The oleo strut was holding. There was no brake fluid leaking, and I looked at that brake line. Everything looked normal to me. For everything I could tell, there's nothing wrong with this airplane. I was in the right seat for power plant start. I didn't film any of that, but we did a power plant start, checklist, all that kind of stuff. Glenn had his checklist up on his iPad. He used all that, and that's that sequence that you saw in the previous video of our actual takeoff. We made a takeoff using the before takeoff checklist, and I pointed out the emphasis, my high emphasis here was flaps. They're up and indicating. The flap handle is in the correct position, and the flap indicator is indicating that they're up. This is critical. There's lots of critical things on airplanes. All you guys out there, it's the same thing. It's not Glenn. It's you and me and Dylan and Glenn. Anybody that you know and love and respect, tell them to slow down double check, use their checklist, and confirm everything is in the correct position before you push the power in, and that's all we were trying to do. So the airplane, all that portion was normal. My error was that I was thinking that there could be something wrong with the airplane all the way up until we got it in the air, in which case all systems were normal. At that point, I thought, this is over. We're going to fly around a little bit, have a little bit of fun. We did a test at about 3,700 feet, 3,700 to 4,000 feet. We put full flaps and let the airplane climb at 400 feet per minute up to 4,000 feet. It went up there easily. Full flaps, it'll sure climb, no problem. And I wanted to show that. My video got a little bit goofed up on that, but I'll be able to straighten that out, I think, and show all that. That was the purpose of it. We were not screwing around. We were not doing anything unusual. My emphasis with Glenn and everyone else, airplanes will kill you. Let's slow down, pay attention, use the checklist, and make sure everything is good. So that's all we were doing. And at that point, after takeoff, I thought this whole thing is over. It's looking good. I had no idea anything could possibly be wrong here. The status, Glenn's status, Glenn is still in a world of hurt. He's in the hospital. He's going to be there for a little while. And so is Jason. Jason is the guy that was behind me. They're both in not good shape. Jason got oil, hot oil on his leg in addition to a broken leg similar to mine to get him out of there. And I'll tell the whole story of getting everybody out here in just a second. But we're all going to make a good recovery, so it's going to be fine. I'm going to talk a little bit about the crash itself. We came back into land, and everything was normal. My feet aren't up near the pedals when we get down close to the ground. This is Glenn's airplane. Once we're on short final, speed's good, checklist complete, green lights, everything's good. I put my guard down. I slid back in my seat. My feet are not near the pedals because they don't need to be. Glenn has got this. I don't need to be up there. I will admit that during maneuvering downwind to base to final, I'm at the ready, and I got my hands near the controls. I got my feet up near the rudder pedals, and that's all, just in case something happened. I mean, that's just the multi-engine instructor in me. I'm kind of sitting up, paying attention, and ready to provide an input if I think it's necessary. But at that point, when the airplane's 200 feet off the ground, stabilized, checklist complete, VREF, everything's good, as far as I'm concerned, the whole thing is over. So we landed the airplane. It was a very nice landing, and I want to talk to you about this tail wheel castering thing. You've seen the video of the tail wheel castering. Tail wheels on these airplanes do not necessarily need to be locked. This one definitely was in the locked position prior to takeoff, but the whole mechanical system, this is a really Mickey Mouse system in the first place. This tail wheel doesn't do much. In all your other little tail wheel airplanes, we don't even have a tail wheel lock. The DC-3 locks the tail wheel for takeoff and landing, but it's not even required. I can do it with or without. On some instances in the DC-3, I prefer to take off with the tail wheel unlocked. It gives me more feel and more control. On Glenn's takeoff, I don't know what he was feeling because my feet weren't up near the pedals on the takeoff. I was ready, but I didn't have pedal input to my feet during takeoff, so I couldn't feel, never thought anything about whether the tail wheel was actually locked into place and seated or not. I don't know. I really don't know. But locking of the tail wheel makes no difference. Even if the thing was free castering on the approach, even if it was going around, you saw that thing spinning like a roulette wheel, so what? They all do that. I have owned a Beech 18. Most of my Beech 18 landings, I never had the tail wheel locked. I prefer to fly that thing with the tail wheel unlocked the entire time. It's on the checklist. We complied. I'll show you the pictures in that first video. The tail wheel is definitely in the engaged position. We're totally covered. Was it actually pinned in place? I don't know. We'll probably never know, but for sure when we came in and landed, it looked to me like the tail wheel was spinning, but it doesn't matter. The tail wheel going around is not going to cause the airplane to lurch like it did. What happened was when we came in, this airplane had lost fluid or pressure or something. This is my opinion. We still don't know. I think this airplane had lost brake fluid off the master brake cylinder system that controls hydraulics, which is coming off your feet. Your feet are actually pumps providing positive pressure to the brakes on either side. I think the right pedal was most likely spongy. Do I know for sure? No, I don't, because I was a complete idiot. And on 200-foot final, I did not check positive hard pedal left and right. I should have. That's what Dan forgot. On other airplanes, other test flights, other times, I have included that into my flow, and I think that would be a very good thing for you, whatever you're flying. 172, 182 Cirrus, before you touch down, feel the pedals. Do they feel equally hard in flight, even after you put the gear down? If it's a retract, put your feet up at the top of the pedals before you touch down and feel the pedals and make sure they're both hard. If they're not, go around and go someplace else and sort it out. You don't want to be surprised. I got sucker punched because I was not ready. I believe that the right side was spongy and the left side was solid as a rock. I think when we went to decelerate, I think Glenn's feet at the top of the, his toes at the top of the pedals applied approximately equal pressure like he always does. It's just that the left side grabbed and the right side had nothing. I think that's all that happened here. And he was as surprised as I am. We started that hard left-hand turn. It started an easy turn, and then the further we went, it womped over to a very hard left-hand turn, and we both knew we were heading for the bushes. There was a tree in the middle of the bushes. We did not know that the tree was there. I knew we were going off the runway. We were going over that little hill. We're going in, but I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. Just before we entered the bushes, both Glenn and I reached up and pulled mixtures to idle cutoff. I don't know whose hand got there first, but I know both of our hands went for the mixtures at the exact same time. Problem was the left engine shut down exactly. The right engine, when it hit, it broke cables, and that engine went to almost wide open on the right side. After impact, Glenn took a whomp. He took a horrible hit. Well, we both did. As you can see here, we both took a hit. I'm in much better shape. Glenn broke a lot of bones in his face. We both had planted our heads directly into that instrument panel there, but I think Glenn's face plant into that panel, it was bad. As soon as we impacted, Glenn was bleeding, I was bleeding, we had blood everywhere, and Glenn and I were trying to get that engine shut down. We were both conscious and talking. We were playing with the mags, the mixtures, prop controls. We were playing with everything. We didn't know that nothing was connected anymore. There's nothing we could do from right there. We messed with it for about 60 seconds, and Glenn was in horrible shape. I was afraid that he was about to pass out. He was in trauma. He was deep in trauma. I wanted him out of the airplane because we had raw fuel everywhere. The right engine was running. Out my side, I could see as that engine was running, it was backfiring, and every 12 or 15 seconds, I could see a yellow flame as that engine sputtered, and that yellow flame was spurting. So I wanted Glenn out. I was trapped. Jason, the guy behind me, he was also trapped. Our feet were entangled and trapped around metal. We could not free ourselves out of that. But Glenn was conscious enough. I asked him, I said, are your feet trapped? Are you pinned in? And he said, no. I said, can you slide sideways on your side, twist sideways, and let me pull you out? So he twisted his body just a little bit left. I grabbed him by the armpits and slid him aft out of his seat as much as I could until he hit the floor. That's all I could do. I wanted him out of the airplane. I pulled him aft, dropped him on the floor, and I was still yelling at him, crawl for the door, go for the door, go, get to the door. I expected that airplane to blow any second. I could not see how we had not blown up yet. Glenn made it to the door. I don't know who, but somebody helped him out. That left me and Jason in the airplane and trapped. Here's the miraculous story here. This impact, this very low speed impact occurred right next to Moose's water and irrigation truck. I'm going to read you the name of this thing, but a guy named Kenny owns Big Moose Pressure Cleaning. If you have a chance to go to Facebook and leave a like for Kenny, find his Facebook page. Kenny, it's called Big Moose Pressure Cleaning. Kenny had a truck and a rig and a 3-inch line and 500 gallons rigged up and ready to go, and he was only 100 feet from where he needed to be. He jumped off his deck, he lives there, jumped in his truck, pulled it around, drove towards the fire, drove towards the danger, got out of his truck and started getting his hose out and turning the pumper on. By that time, several people showed up and they started dumping water where the problem is. The problem is that that engine would not shut down and there's still fire. The number of people that ran towards danger is incredible on this. Everybody knows it's 100 low lead. Everybody knows it's on fire. Everybody knows this whole thing is about to blow, and everybody ran towards it. In a few seconds, I had a couple people inside the airplane. Brad Hatcher, Chris Cox, somebody came in. I'm gonna read a couple names here, but all these guys out here from Seven Lakes Moose, that's Kenny that owns the Big Moose pressure washing. Tim, Chris Cox, Brad Hatcher, Jay Lauder, and Gene and Debbie were all out there. Somebody came up in the airplane and said, we can't get the engine to shut down. And I said, squirt that fire hose in the intake. It's the small thing below the engine itself. Squirt water in the intake. And then as soon as you do, get water on the accessory case of the engine. And they went back out and they did that. And within about 30 seconds, that engine was shut down and I could feel water. They were dumping water under pressure against that thing, and I knew that now we have a chance. Still lots of fuel and oil, but the engine is shut down, and at least we've got water being dumped on that 100 low lead and getting rid of that vapor. Huge, big shout out to all of those guys who absolutely boarded that airplane, ran towards danger with full knowledge it's about to blow. There's no doubt. You take one look at that thing, and it's definitely about to blow up. It took a little bit to get the fire department there, but as soon as the fire department got there, they brought the Jaws of Life, the EMT. They brought 3 helicopters out. They took Glenn immediately. It took 1 hour to get Jason out. Jason was in extreme pain, and his foot was pinned in there. I was conscious for the whole thing, and I was able to help the EMTs. They wanted to cut fuel lines and aluminum lines in the airplane that ran along the spar, and I was like, no, don't cut that. We got to cut seats, but we can't cut lines because we can't have any more fuel or oil anywhere inside of this thing. So they finally got all that stuff loose enough, and then they had the Sawzall. They brought out the Sawzall. They were down to having to actually cut, and we're talking with a blade. It's going to make sparks, and I said, get fire extinguishers. Go out there and bring some fire extinguishers, and they did. They brought fire extinguishers in, and they had them at the ready just before they started cutting to get the last portion of Jason's seat undone. And they brought the fire extinguishers in. The guy said, what do you want me to do with these? I said, pull the pins. And he said, for what? I said, pull the pins and put your hand on the trigger. Be ready. Pull those pins. And he goes, okay, all right. And then all of a sudden, I'm seeing halon floating around there. They activated the Sawzall. They got the last bit of that cut off. It was making sparks, but they had halon in there. It did not blow. If it had blown, we would have all been dead, every bit of us. The fire department, the chief out there, allowed EMT to go into an unstable situation. He gave the order to send those EMTs and those rescue workers inside the airplane, knowing full well he's putting his boys in danger. No doubt about it. And they did it. They went inside, took an hour to get Jason out. I finally came out at 1 hour and 40 minutes. And by that time, I had lost a lot of blood, a lot of water, and I was completely exhausted and in pain. The very last thing, I'm gonna do a little video on this thing, but the EMT that worked with me, the closest up there, up front, it got down to the very end. My foot was already broken and dangling. And he told me at the very, very end, we had already loosened everything we could loosen, but my foot was still not free. And he said, I'm just gonna pull you out and it's gonna hurt like crazy. And I said, on 3, just do it. And he grabbed me by the armpits and went, Fwah, and yes, it hurt. It rotated my foot around 180 degrees backwards. It was already disconnected, but yes, I felt it. I ended up backwards, upside down on top of his body. He slid me backwards on top of his body onto the bodyboard. From the bodyboard, we went to the ambulance, got me in the ambulance. I stayed conscious for the whole thing. I'm amazed. But they gave me 2 units of blood and a whole bunch of saline and fluids. huge shout out to your first responders out there. I don't know if you guys have ever thought about the number of people and equipment and medical and experts, everything between the doctors, the ER people, the helicopter people, the ambulance people, the people that can get you stabilized, to get you on a bodyboard and get you taken care of. Huge, huge network. Even getting out of the airplane, I would have been dead if it had not been for the first responders that got there and got me out and got me stabilized and got me on board that helicopter for the ride up to Grady. And I finally made it up to Grady. Never lost consciousness on the helicopter ride. I felt it pick up. I know we climbed vertically, then we accelerated. I was still conscious and asking for morphine for my leg. I asked like 50 times, have you got anything for my leg? The pain is just like crazy. You just can't believe. Some of you people have been in these kind of situations. I've never felt pain quite like that, but we made it to the hospital. Everything was good, and we got up there. Everybody showed up. The communication network was outstanding, and I sure appreciate, especially local fire department, the EMTs, those guys that boarded the airplane knowing that they're about to die. That's a special kind of individual right there. All right, I'm going to talk about a couple other things here. Let's see. I'm going by my notes here. I think I've mentioned all of those other people. I for sure want to dispel a couple of rumors here that we failed to do the before takeoff checklist or had anything to do with the tail wheel being unlocked. Doesn't have anything to do with it. Has nothing to do with flaps or takeoff checklist or us screwing around. Has nothing to do with it. I think it was just a simple brake that went spongy on the right. We got sucker punched on this for sure. This is an AQP scenario, and I want you to think about this. This is AQP. I got this situation handed to me for sure. I was totally unexpecting, especially at the end of the flight. I let my guard down at the end of the flight because I thought we were totally golden. Shame on me. I should not have ever given up fighting for keeping my guard up and paying attention to what's going on. I should have known to do a pedal check on short final. That's what Dan forgot. I could easily in flight on short final just check pedals and make sure they're both equal, and I encourage all of y'all to incorporate that into your landing checklist as you're able. I am home and stable. I've been overwhelmed with calls and support, and I appreciate all that. This is a huge takeaway for the AQP concept. This is an AQP maneuver. I got sucker punched. I got handed something. The scenario I got handed is not in the FAA ACS. This is not a scenario that they'll ever tell you about. Checking your brakes before landing, they're never going to tell you about it. I'm going to tell you, this is probably a real good thing to do. I'm going to take a quick break and listen to the comments here from this thing. Anything that I need to know about in the comments. I can't read the comments here, but anything that I need to know about in the comments. Questions? Anybody got a question that I can help you with here? Looks like there's about 500 people in here. Anything I can help you with on answering your questions or explaining what the deal is here? I'm glad to answer any questions or anything like that. Anybody on there?
I mean, there's a lot of them. So if you want, you can throw on some glasses and read from the chat on the right on your computer screen. That'd be easy to read. But a lot of people are still thinking it's more so tail wheel than the right brake not working. So if you want to cover that again.
Yeah, let me cover that again. If you're thinking that this had anything to do with the tail wheel being unlocked, it doesn't. These airplanes, we don't land them with the tail wheel locked most of the time anyway. Tail wheel being unlocked does not do this. It won't make that kind of an effect. The only way to make this airplane pull hard left is with a good left brake, and we had a good left brake. This has nothing to do with tail wheel locked or unlocked or spinning. Makes no difference. And if you don't understand that, then you're not a tail wheel pilot. It's got nothing to do with it. Shoulder harnesses. I'm a firm believer in shoulder harnesses, and I think that's a good point there. I just saw somebody make that comment. I think this airplane should have, I don't know that they would have helped in this situation because the instrument panel came towards us as much as we came towards it. I don't know the shoulder harness would have protected the instrument panel. Basically ended up right here in our faces, the whole airplane. That tree split the nose right down the middle. It came right through the center line and pushed that instrument panel right on top of us. The whole thing, that metal is soft. It just pushed it and melted it all around us. So let me check and see if I can do anything else for you guys.
Somebody wants to know if you're going to rebuild the airplane.
Glenn is talking about taking that out.
I think the airplane will fly again. Glenn will fly again. I'll fly again. I think the airplane will fly again. It's going to take a little bit of time, but we've got the resources. Glenn loves that airplane. He's very good with it, and Glenn's got a lot of resources. I'd like to be involved in raising support for Glenn to do that if we're able to, but we'll see. We got to get people out of the hospital and stabilized. Main thing is we're alive. Staying alive. Staying alive. We're alive, but just barely. The only reason that we're alive is because Kenny was out there with his water truck and jumped into action within seconds of this airplane hitting that tree. He was on it. He ran towards the flame. I don't know if I would have done that or not, Kenny. I don't know. That's crazy dangerous. But he got his water truck there, turned it on, and started pumping water like there's no tomorrow. I think that's what fixed us. Brad Hatcher, Chris Cox, all those guys out there, Tim, everybody did such a fantastic job and put themselves in danger on this whole thing. Great lesson to learn. I think it was just a completely freak accident, unrelated to tailwheel, unrelated to checklist, unrelated to anything. I think we had a spongy right brake, and when we went to apply both brakes, when Glenn went to apply both brakes equally, he got far more left than he did right and didn't realize it till the very end. If we had known it, we would have gone around and gone someplace else, landed at a long runway. We could have declared an emergency, gone to a long runway and prepared to ground loop if we need to. But we just got sacrificed. We had no idea that this was going on. We were as surprised as anybody. And when it went that hard left, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. That low speed that we're turning a 90 degree to the left, I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. I had already checked out and was thinking about where I'm going to dinner. I'm done with this flight. It's over. Everything's good. I had no idea. Let me check and see if I can do anything else for you guys. I appreciate you sticking around here.
What kind of airplane was it?
It was the Lockheed Electra. If you look at the movie Amelia, this is the airplane that they used to make the movie Amelia, 1936 Lockheed Electra Junior. It's a 12A, so it's a little bit smaller than the 10 that that Amelia was in, but there was only 8 of these in America up until 7 days ago, and then we've lost 2 in the last 7 days. So highly ironic. I'll take the hit. You can see what I titled my video, What Dan Forgot. Yeah, Dan probably should have known to do a better brake check on final under these conditions. I did not do it, didn't think about it, never crossed my mind, but boy, I can tell you now, it will now, for sure. All right, we're gonna get out of here. Thanks for hanging around, and enjoyed having you guys check out the previous video. I'll leave that up for a little bit, and thanks for sticking around and supporting, especially Glenn and Jason, who are still in the hospital. Even a text or a well wish, it goes a long way. Those guys are definitely hurting. We good?
We're good. Somebody wants to know if you
Didn't
do
want to see
discover
what-
that the brake pressure, you lost it, what are they supposed to do?
If you lose brake pressure, don't land on it. If you do a pedal check on short final and your pedals don't feel nice and hard, don't land. Go around and get in the air and get some help. Go to a long runway, a wide runway, declare an emergency and get fire and rescue out there. Make a landing someplace knowing that when you touch down, don't use your brakes. Stay off both brakes. Land in the middle and stay off both brakes and guide it with the rudder to a complete stop. Don't even think about touching either brake if you know that's what the deal is. This should be an AQP scenario. This should be something we practice. Landing with differential brake pressure or one side bad, defective brake on one side should be an AQP maneuver. It is now. Boy, is it now. I wish that we had thought of that or done it. That's on me. I could kick myself for not doing that. We would have gone around, declared emergency. I'd take that thing into Hartsville if I have to. I don't care. We won't land it at Seven Lakes if there's any kind of a problem at all. Let's see, anything else?
I think people want to see Laura's face.
Jump in there, Laura.
Give him a wave in there. There you go.
She's here, Jet Boss. Laura came down from DC to help cook meals and move me around, stuff like that. So we've had a lot of people. We've had a lot of people here in and out, and it's been great. I am not in any major pain. I'm on oxycodone, which is it's a hard drug, but I'm keeping enough of that to keep the pain down at a level 1 or 2 or 3 most of the time. It only hurts crazy when I move it or bump it or something like that. The rest of the time, if I'm laying flat with it elevated and ice on it, it's actually okay. I'll get this whole rig off of here in the next couple weeks, and then we'll do surgery and get the rest of those plates installed. Then I'll be back to flying, skydiving, and playing banjo like I always do. And I sure appreciate you guys. Thanks for jumping in here and listening to the story. Think about this. Think about doing a brake check on final. Gear down, 3 green, stabilized approach, and brakes are good. What would be wrong with that? You tell me. Leave me a comment. What would be wrong? Stabilized approach, gear down, landing checklist complete. We're red over white on VREF, and the brakes are good. I'm adding it. I like it. Check your brakes on final. Don't get surprised like we did. Let's get out of here. We'll get this video closed out. This is the live one, and I appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot. Sorry about the banjo. It has to happen every now and then, but we're all good. And there's Dylan in there.
Yeah.
Say hi, Dylan.
Say hey, Dylan.
Hey, folks.
Here, jump in here.
We're in there.
No, I'll put Dylan in here.
There's one more banjo for you.
There you go.
Play yourself out.
Here, get down there. We can see it. All right. Yeah, Dylan is a moron, and you know that. So we've had to put up with Dylan, and we do have one dad joke. Go ahead and do the dad. Do the one dad joke that we rehearsed yesterday.
How many did you rehearse yesterday?
We rehearsed. I kind of like it.
That terrible one?
Yes.
The pressure?
Yes.
Oh, that was so bad.
Okay, go ahead and ask me the question.
Do you remember it? Do you believe in extraterrestrials?
Yeah, do you,
No, you got to say, Dad, do you believe in extraterrestrials?
you got any extraterrestrials? Or do you believe in extraterrestrials?
We don't have any terrestrials.
Yeah, that's how it went last night.
Yeah,
Get it? Extraterrestrials.
If you have to explain it, it's really bad.
We don't have any terrestrials, let alone any extra. I don't know why they would call it extraterrestrials. We don't have one in the first place. I don't know that I've ever seen one. I don't know.
I don't think you know.
We'll get out of here. Thanks, you guys. We're alive. Send your best wishes to Glenn and Jason, and we'll get this video done. Adios.